The asteroid came out of the darkness, silent and enormous. It struck the ocean, tearing the water into steam and flame. The planet shuddered. The orbit shifted millions of kilometers. Earth began a new dance around the sun. The year stretched to 500 days. The first week seemed normal. People looked at the sky, not understanding what had happened. The instruments showed strange numbers. Astronomers sounded the alarm. Calculations confirmed the incredible. The planet had changed course. Humanity froze in anticipation. Summer never ended. The heat grew, melting the asphalt and drying up the rivers. The fields turned into deserts for 3 months straight. Then winter came, sudden and fierce. Snow blanketed cities overnight. Temperatures dropped 50 degrees. The biosphere had never known such changes. Plants flourished and died in chaos. Animals migrated, finding no familiar seasons. Harvests were failing. Famine swept across continents. Governments declared states of emergency, but no solutions were found. Scientists worked without sleep, searching for patterns in the new cycles. Climate models were collapsing one after another every day. The first riots broke out in major cities. People smashed stores, demanding food and answers. The police were unable to control the crowds. Governments fell. Borders were erased. Humanity fragmented into communities, struggling to survive at any cost in a new, insane world. But amidst the chaos, an idea was born. Engineers proposed building underground shelters, domes where the climate could be controlled. The first dome was laid in Norway. Thousands of people dug the rock by hand. Concrete and steel went kilometers deep. A year later, the dome came to life. Artificial suns lit up inside. The temperature remained stable. People cried with relief. The project spread across the planet. Cities went underground, escaping the vagaries of the sky. The surface became a wasteland. Time cycles were established in the domes. 24 hours of light, 10 hours of darkness. Biological rhythms regained their footing. Plants were grown under lamps. Meat was produced in bioreactors. Water was purified and circulated in a closed loop. The generation of domes knew no sky. Children were born in the light of lamps. They heard stories of the stars as if they were ancient fairy tales. Culture changed. Time was measured by light cycles. Calendars were rewritten, discarding the month names of the old world. New religions arose. Some prayed to the dome as a savior. Others called for a return to the surface, to true nature. Engineers became the new elite. They maintained life support systems. The survival of millions of people depended on their decisions. Tunnels stretched between the domes. Trains raced through the darkness, connecting enclaves of civilization. Trade never faltered. Nomads roamed the surface. They learned to read the frantic climate. Their skin was roughened by the wind and solar radiation. The nomads despised the dome dwellers, calling them blind moles who had forgotten freedom. Sometimes they attacked the tunnel entrances. The war between the worlds simmered for decades. The domes sent out drones. Nomads burned crops and blew up the city's ventilation shafts. But gradually the warring parties grew weary. They concluded a truce, fragile as spring ice. The exchange of goods became a substitute for battle. The nomads brought rare minerals from the surface. The domed ones provided medicines and technologies. The economy found a new balance. 100 years have passed since the impact. The biosphere has begun to change. Some species have adapted to the chaotic seasons, and evolution has accelerated. Plants learned to sleep at any moment. Their seeds could wait for years. Flowering depended not on the calendar, but on the temperature. Animals became smaller and more resilient. Birds nested in caves. Mammals grew thick fur, shedding it within weeks. Scientists studied the new nature, recording mutations and cycles. Some dreamed of returning Earth to its old orbit someday. Technology advanced. Fusion reactors powered the domes. Nanorobots continuously repaired systems without human intervention. Artificial intelligence controlled the climate inside the shelters. It predicted breakdowns and optimized resources with the precision of a machine. But people yearned for real sun. Psychologists recorded a rise in depression. Dome syndrome became the leading affliction of the era. Artists painted the sky from the memory of their ancestors. Musicians composed symphonies of the wind. Literature celebrated the lost world of the surface. Extreme sports enthusiasts emerged, venturing to the surface. They filmed their journeys, risking their lives. Their programs attracted billions of viewers below. One extreme sports enthusiast found an oasis, a valley where the climate was almost stable, a microclimate created by the mountains and the ocean currents nearby. Thousands of people moved there. They founded an open-air settlement. They named it Nadezhda, the first above-ground city of the era. Hope grew. People built houses of stone and wood. They cultivated gardens protected from the winds. Life seemed possible again. But the climate deceived us. 5 years later, a heat wave arrived. Temperatures reached 70 degrees Celsius. The city turned into an oven within 24 hours. Few were saved. They returned to the domes with bitterness. Nadezhda's story became a warning to all surface dreamers. 200 years passed. The domes had become megacities. Hundreds of levels descended. The population underground once again reached billions. Architecture became vertical. Buildings grew downwards, not upwards. Light penetrated through a system of mirrors and fiber optics. Culture was divided into layers. The upper layers were wealthy, close to the surface. The lower ones were dark slums, forgotten by the authorities. Social mobility has almost stopped. Born at the bottom, you'll die there. Revolutions flared up and died out in the depths every decade. Scientists continued to try to understand the orbit. Supercomputers simulated Earth's trajectory. A theory for planetary path correction emerged. Project Return was insane. Build thousands of thrusters in orbit. Push the planet back onto its old trajectory for centuries. Some called it salvation. Others called it hubris and suicide. The debate divided the scientific community for decades to come. But the project began. The dome's resources were pooled. Caravans of cargo ships were launched into orbit. Construction took 50 years. The engines ignited. Thousands of plasma torches pushed into the void. The ground trembled, but did not move. There wasn't enough power yet. The number of engines doubled, tripled. Energy consumption grew. The domes economized on everything for the sake of the project. People starved for the sake of the goal. After 100 years, the orbit began to change. The year shortened to 490 days. The climate gradually became slightly more predictable, but the price was terrible. The dome economy collapsed. Life support systems aged. The population dwindled from disease and poverty. Project Return was halted. The engines died in orbit. Humanity no longer had the strength to continue. The dream died halfway. An era of decline had arrived. The domes were deserted. People died of epidemics and famine. Technologies were forgotten, replaced by primitive crafts. Communication between the domes was severed. Each community stewed in its own juices. Knowledge fragmented. Science became a thing of the past. The nomads on the surface flourished. They learned to live in the rhythm of chaos. Their culture was flexible, fluid like water. Nomadic tribes developed an amazing intuition. They predicted climate change by clouds and animal behavior. They survived where the domed ones perished. 300 years of oblivion passed. Humanity shattered into thousands of fragments. Languages mutated. History was erased from the memory of peoples. But some domes preserved knowledge. Libraries in sealed vaults. Servers running on residual energy for centuries. A young engineer discovered such a vault. He learned to read ancient files and learned about the Return Project and the causes of the disaster. He began his journey between the domes. He gathered scientists and engineers. He spoke of the past and the possibilities of the future. He ignited hope in their hearts. A new movement was born. Children of the Earth. That's what they called themselves. Their goal wasn't to recapture the orbit, but to embrace the new reality. They proposed a different path. Terraform the surface to accommodate a new climate. create ecosystems capable of surviving the planet's chaotic rhythms. Bioengineers have revived ancient technologies. They've genetically modified plants and animals, making them resistant to extreme temperature changes. The first biodomes emerged on the surface, transparent spheres with a controlled climate inside. But the walls let in real sunlight. People began to return to the surface, slowly, carefully, generation after generation. Their skin adapted. Their eyes became accustomed to the brightness of the sun once again. Nomads and domed people united. Surface knowledge merged with technology. A hybrid civilization was born, simultaneously strong and flexible. Cities grew like organisms, underground levels connected with above-ground domes. Architecture became a symbiosis of nature and ingenious machine. The climate remained unpredictable, but people learned to dance to its music. Each season was unique, each year a new adventure. Agriculture became mobile. Fields moved on platforms following favorable zones. Harvests were collected all year round. Energy was based on climate contrasts. Temperature differences turned turbines. Hurricanes powered giant, robust windmills. Culture acquired a new aesthetic. Art celebrated changeability and adaptation. Beauty lay in flexibility, not in the permanence of form. Philosophy embraced the concept of eternal flux. Stability was considered an illusion. Wisdom lay in the ability to change with the world around us. Religions were transformed. The old gods retreated. New pantheons embodied the forces of nature: chaos, adaptation, survival, and rebirth of the planet. 1,000 years had passed since the impact. Humanity was unrecognizable, but it survived, adapting to the new conditions. Evolution affected more than just bodies. The biosphere found equilibrium. New species filled niches. Forests grew in cycles, dying and regenerating. The oceans teemed with strange, cold life. Earth was no longer the same planet. It had become something else, a world of constant change, where life was learning flexibility instead of stability. People looked at the stars. They dreamed of colonizing other worlds, but no longer as an escape, but as a way to spread a new understanding. They built the first starships. They sent colonies to distant planets. They carried with them the lesson of Earth. Civilization must be fluid and adaptive. The dead engines of the Return project remained in orbit. They were turned into a monument, a reminder of hubris and the price of denying reality. The new generations didn't regret the old orbit. They knew no stable seasons. For them, chaos was the norm, and adaptation the meaning of existence. Scientists continued to study the orbit, not to change it, but to understand it. It became possible to predict major climate anomalies years in advance. Warning systems saved millions of lives. Cities were evacuated before cataclysms. They returned afterward and rebuilt. The cycle of destruction and creation is continuous. Architecture became modular. Buildings could be assembled and dismantled in weeks. Materials were endlessly recycled. Nothing was physically permanent. Even families became flexible. Communities replaced nuclear units. Children were raised communally. Attachment to place disappeared from the culture completely. The language was enriched with new words. Hundreds of terms emerged to describe the nuances of the climate. The concept of home became abstract, signifying more the people nearby. Art reached unprecedented heights. Painting reflected the fluidity of the world. Music imitated the sounds of nature, the howl of storms, the cracking of ice, the whisper of a momentary thaw. Literature became epic. Sagas described journeys across climate zones. Heroes didn't fight enemies, but overcame the elements together. Theater became a ritual. Performances lasted for weeks, following the weather cycles. Actors improvised, reacting to the changing environment. Science and mysticism merged. Shamans used instruments for divination. Scientists performed rituals before experiments. The line between the rational and the spiritual became blurred. Education became a continuous process. People learned throughout their lives, adapting to new conditions. Specialization gave way to a broad versatility of skills. Medicine has conquered many diseases, but new ones related to climate have emerged. Human bodies have mutated to adapt. Genetics has become the art of survival. Life expectancy fluctuated. In stable zones, people lived long lives. In extreme regions, they lived shorter but more intense lives. Quality replaced quantity. The economy was based on the exchange of experience. Money lost its meaning. Survival knowledge and adaptive techniques were valued. Wealth was measured by the flexibility of one's thinking. Politics became decentralized. There were no global governments. Regional councils were coordinated through a network. Decisions were made by consensus of local communities. Conflicts were resolved through mediation. War became an unaffordable luxury. Resources were too valuable to waste on destruction. Cooperation was a survival imperative. 2,000 years passed. The asteroid became a myth. Children listened to legends about a stable Earth, but they didn't believe it, considering it a beautiful fairy tale. Archaeologists excavated the ruins of ancient cities, finding remnants of civilization before the impact. Museums preserved artifacts, calendars, clocks, photographs of the unchanging seasons. Some tried to recreate the old way of life. They built domes with artificial moons, but the experiments failed. The psyche couldn't withstand the artificiality. Humanity finally accepted its destiny. Earth, with its orbit altered, became its true home. The past was released. The future opened up with endless new possibilities. Philosophers said the asteroid strike was not a curse, but a gift. It forced us to evolve rapidly, not over millions of years, but over millennia. Poets celebrated the beauty of impermanence. They saw uniqueness in every sunrise, the singularity of every sunset. Life became a conscious meditation. Scientists discovered that the orbit was slowly stabilizing. In 1,000,000 years, the climate would become predictable. But this wasn't encouraging. It was paradoxically sad. Because humanity fell in love with the dance of chaos. Stability seemed dull and lifeless. Change provided meaning, purpose, and true identity. Civilization reached space. It colonized Mars and the moons of Jupiter. But everywhere it carried the philosophy of adaptation. Not to conquer nature, but to merge with it. Other planets weren't created as copies of Earth. Each world developed uniquely. Martian culture was just as radically different from Earth's. Connections between worlds were maintained, but each followed its own path. Humanity became not a single species, but a constellation of related civilizations. Earth remained a cradle. Pilgrims from other planets came here to see a world of eternal change and to touch the roots of the philosophy of flexibility. Tourists from stable worlds were shocked. They couldn't understand how to live without predictability. Earthlings seemed like magicians or incomprehensible madmen to them, but some remained. They fell in love with chaos. They learned the dance of adaptation, and they could never return to the boring stability of their former worlds. Earth exported philosophy, not goods. Teachers traveled across the galaxy, teaching the art of embracing change. They were called masters of the eternal flow. 10,000 years have passed. Earth has become a living legend, a teacher planet that showed how catastrophe can become the greatest transformation. The biosphere achieved incredible diversity. Each climate zone gave rise to unique ecosystems. Evolution created like a mad, inspired artist. New species emerged every century. Some lived for a single season, others for hundreds of years, falling into suspended animation. Life found thousands of ways to exist. Humans also evolved. Branches adapted to different zones emerged. The warmth-loving ones lived in zones of perpetual heat. The ice-loving ones lived in regions of cold. But no division occurred. Branches of humanity interbred, exchanging genes. Diversity was preserved within the astonishing unity of the species. Genetic engineering became commonplace. Parents chose adaptations for their children, not appearance, but the ability to survive in specific environmental conditions. The ethics of genetics were strict. The creation of castes or artificial enhancement of intelligence was prohibited. Changes concerned only adaptation to the physical environment. The culture eschewed hierarchies. All adaptations were considered equal. A Heatman was no better than an Iceman. Each simply occupied their own ecological niche. Society became a symbiosis of specializations. Each group contributed to the overall survival. The economy was based on complementarity rather than cutthroat competition. Conflicts disappeared almost completely. The climate was both a common enemy and a teacher. Everyone was equal before the elements. This united people better than any ideology. 100,000 years have passed. Humanity has become part of the planet. Not an invader, not a parasite, but an integral element of the living ecosystem. Cities merged with the landscape. Buildings resembled trees or coral. Technology and nature merged into an indistinguishable, organic whole. Artificial intelligence evolved alongside humans. It didn't control them. It was a partner, a helper in a dance with the unpredictable climate. AI predicted the weather years in advance, but not perfectly. It left room for the unexpected, because it understood that chaos is life, not a hindrance. Humans and machines have created a symbiosis of consciousness, a hybrid mind combining intuition and logic. The creativity of organic matter and the precision of silicon have fused. This mind was not unified. It existed as a network of individualities. Each node was free, but all were connected by invisible threads. Philosophy reached its apogee. The question of the meaning of life received a simple answer. Meaning lies in the process, not in the final goal. Life is a dance with uncertainty. Joy lies in the present moment. Wisdom lies in accepting that everything is fluid and constantly changing. Religions disappeared as separate institutions, but spirituality became ubiquitous. Every act of adaptation was a prayer. Every day of survival was gratitude to the universe. Death ceased to frighten. It was part of the cycle. The body returned to the ecosystem. Consciousness merged with the planetary network. Nothing was lost without a trace. 1,000,000 years passed. The orbit had almost stabilized. The climate had become predictable. But humanity had not changed. It had retained the philosophy of fluidity forever. Because I understood the most important thing. Stability is death for consciousness. Growth is only possible through challenge. Evolution requires constant tension. They artificially created zones of chaos so that new generations would remember the lessons of their ancestors, so that they wouldn't forget what made humanity what it is. The Earth became a galactic university. Civilizations from across the universe came here to learn the art of adaptation, the philosophy of flow, and the wisdom of acceptance. The planet with its altered orbit became a symbol, proof that catastrophe can be a beginning, that pain can give birth to beauty, that chaos can give birth to supreme harmony. The asteroid that struck 1,000,000 years ago didn't destroy the world. It gave it a new lease on life. It forced humanity to rethink its place in the universe. The old civilization dreamed of conquering nature. The new one learned to dance with it. And this dance was more beautiful than any symphony of dead stability. The children of Earth looked to the stars, not as refuge from chaos, but as new platforms for the dance of the infinite. They carried the torch of adaptation across the cosmos. They sowed the seeds of the philosophy of flexibility on countless worlds. They taught the universe the eternal law of life. Change or die, accept or be destroyed. Dance with chaos or disappear into dark oblivion. This was Earth's lesson to all beings. And in this lesson, there was salvation. Not from change, but through change. Not in spite of chaos, but thanks to its creativity. The Earth changed its orbit, but humanity changed itself. And this second change was immeasurably more important than the first. The planet became a metaphor. Life is an orbit, constantly adjusting. Wisdom is the ability to dance gracefully along any trajectory. Eons have passed. The sun is aging. In billions of years, it will devour the planets, but Earth's legacy will outlive its parent star. Because the idea is eternal. Adaptation is the essence of life. Flexibility is its strength. Embracing change is its deepest wisdom. Humanity spread across the galaxies, but everywhere it remembered its cradle. The planet that taught it the most important thing: there are no catastrophes, only transformations. And when new races in the universe face crises, they recall the legend of Earth, of a world that changed its orbit and itself. This story is passed down by word of mouth, from star to star, from era to era, an eternal song of adaptation and survival. There is no end to it, because the dance continues. As long as consciousness exists, there will be change. As long as there is life, there will be chaos and harmony. The asteroid struck once, but the impact's impact continues to spread. Waves of change spread endlessly across the fabric of the universe, and in every wave there is a lesson. In every transformation there is hope. In every chaos there is boundless opportunity for growth. The Earth changed its orbit, and it changed the fate of intelligence in the universe. This was not a tragedy. It was a true awakening.